welcome to the official Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And my name's Nikki, bringing you the best in comics and graphic novels and updates from the festival.
Hello and welcome to the Lakes International Comic Art Festival, episode 45. My name's Ian.
And I'm Nikki.
And we've got a great guest. Oh no, we haven't got a guest this episode that we've spoke to anyway. We failed. We had a guest lined up last minute. Well, it wasn't last minute. We just booked him for the last minute and then he couldn't make it. No. So luckily Pete stepped up to the mark.
Good old Pete. Does that mean we have to start paying him now? Please tell me we don't have to start paying him.
We'll pay him exactly the same amount we get paid.
Yay! And we'll put a bonus in as well.
So Pete's chatted to Nick Prolix about his work and also about the comics he's enjoyed.
Yep.
So we'll and the creators as well. So we'll get to that shortly.
Yes.
And Mike's on the show as well as usual to talk about Conan this time.
Ooh.
Now
Small loincloths.
I've not read any Conan comics, but I want to.
Okay. Have we not? Have we not got one?
No, you got Slain, obviously, which is
I think that's what I'm getting.
Similar-ish.
Well,
similar-ish.
No.
As in barbarians.
As a barbarian. That is it. That is the only thing you can,
But I've not,
there.
Conan. I mean, I remember watching obviously the films out there. Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then Red Sonja, which everyone assumes Arnold is playing Conan, which he's not.
I know, but that was confusing.
It was confusing, considering they were very similar times when they came out.
Yes, it wasn't far between them, was it? I don't remember it. Well, I remember seeing them very close together.
And then there was a Conan TV series
for
the cartoon, which was really good fun.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
No.
No, I could tell.
Yeah, I was trying to think, and I was like, no, it's nothing. Nothing is
series.
coming up here.
Before we get into the news, I just want to shout out for a brand new podcast that's come out, Comics for the Apocalypse, which sees the guests talking about the comics they would read should an apocalypse happen.
I wonder who they might have on there.
I wonder, we may be going on ourselves. There's quite a lot, to be fair. It's quite good, the UK comic podcast scene.
Yes.
You've got quite
we
a
must
selection.
kill them all.
No, but if you look at them, you've actually got quite a selection of different style comics.
Yes.
Podcasts.
I like that, though.
You've got the Awesome Comics podcast, which is chatty about a topic and a particular guest each week. So then you've got That Comic Smell, which is a group of guys chatting about comics. So that's very different to what the Awesome Comic podcast does. Then you've got ourselves, again, which...
Like the cherry on the top here.
No, but we are so different to them as well, because we
we're
focus on
different
type of guests that those guys, chat to generally.
Yeah.
And we're sort of reviewing as well, which they don't really do to an extent. So again, it's a different style of podcast.
Yep.
You've got Signals from the Hill, which is Avery Hill's podcast, which obviously focuses more on their creators, understandably.
Yeah.
Then you've got this new one, Comics for Apocalypse.
Which is going in another direction.
Completely different direction, looking at creators, but talking about other work as opposed to their work. And it's quite an amazing scene, and there's more out there.
I like that because we're covering all the bases.
Yeah, well, you can listen to every single one and it
and
not
get
be the same.
Different, yeah.
You listen to movie podcasts, and every time it's reviewing certain movies, and they're all reviewing the same thing. So you can only really focus on one unless you're the ones that are going into the back of time and reviewing old movies. So it's cool. It's a good scene. That is why I'm trying to build a website at the minute, but failing.
I don't know. I just keep finding you just sighing at a computer.
Well, I'm trying
it's not working, Nikki.
I'm trying to. Right. Anyone who knows WordPress or is complete computer nerd out there, you might be able to help me. I want to create a podcast which a website which pulls all the podcast feeds onto one website. Now, I know it can be done. There's other places that do it. However, I cannot find a WordPress plugin that will sort it all out for me and make it nice and easy. So if you know of anything or any easy way of doing it, please let me know.
Yes.
Because I just want to set up a UK-based comic book podcast.
Yeah, so everyone can find all these lovely podcasts.
Yeah, so it all working together, linking together. Anyone who wants to join in can do. Free of charge. It's not about money. This is about getting more listens for everybody. So, yeah. Anyway, let's rattle on with some news, shall we?
Carry on. Does this mean you're pressing buttons?
Yeah, it means I'm not logged in or ready to go. It's been quite a quiet news.
Oh no!
Past few weeks, but
it's all gone wrong.
We'll go with it. Here we go. News sponsored by DownTheTubes.net. Promoting comics on the web since 1998. Black Panther up for Best Picture at the Oscars. Ben Affleck is Batman no more. That's it. That's it.
I just love the way you dance to that. You're the only one with earphones.
Well, you can have earphones. You can have earphones.
You're just grooving away in your seat.
So, that's. I couldn't find anything else of real interest.
That was it. Two pieces.
So let's go for the first one. Black Panther is up for Best Picture at the Oscars.
Good.
Which, unless you count, I don't know, The Incredibles, that was sort of the first, you know, but it's not directly
live action
off.
now.
Well, it's not directly off a comic either.
Yeah.
Black Panther is the first one to be recognised.
Yes, it's taken time, hasn't it, for anything to be recognised?
Are they, now, the only thing that sort of annoys me a little bit, are they recognising this movie due to the storytelling and everything, or are they jumping on the racial, political bandwagon, which is fine, you know, brilliant, but I want the Oscars to start recognising what's going on in the world of film.
Yes.
Not just jump on something that's...
Yeah.
I mean, it's done, it's good. It's all, you know, it's all out for the right reasons, but...
Yes, yeah, but the reasons for choosing it might not be as...
No.
Whereas it should be there on its own merit, which it should be.
Yeah, Nolan's films weren't in there. I mean, Heath Ledger got a Oscar for, but not the actual film for Best Pictures. You know, Batman, they were as serious a film you can get that's actually good.
Yeah.
Some of them are too serious, but and there's been so many. Really, the original Avengers was just superb, and you know. But it's good at least it's being recognised.
Breaking it through and getting.
And hopefully we'll see more coming through down the line, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which we've still not seen.
I know, I'm so upset.
Limited time at the cinema, thank you. That's probably going to get Best Animated, which is fine, but we've had animations before, but superb that it is, and I'm looking forward to seeing it, because people are saying that is the best movie of the year.
We haven't seen it.
No. Well, this is a battle though. You think we would go to the cinema and you could pay what would be 25 quid for us for family. You can buy the Blu-ray for 15 when it comes out and have it forever, you know.
Yeah, and then you won't have someone annoying eating popcorn in front of you.
No.
Or talking through
Although saying that, if it had been on better times, we would have gone and seen it at the cinema and paid the 25 quid. However, such is life. The next thing is Ben Affleck is no more. Batfleck. Batfleck is no more. He's stepping down.
Is he?
Yeah.
Have I seen anything with him? Oh, yes, we have.
Yes, you've seen the two.
Well, he's so forgettable.
Well, no, he was fine as Batman.
Yeah, he was fine. It was unforgettable films.
Yes, that's a problem. Yeah, he would have been fine in his own standalone movie, I think. Probably. It would have been quite interesting.
Yeah, because I think we need the older Batman.
But I think they're going more younger next time.
Sake.
Well, no, that's fine. Cause
not for us old middle-agey people who want to see a middle-agey type of superhero and going, I could still be Batman.
But we do want a Batman that we can see grow. We want to do, not necessarily what the Marvel have done in the universe, but we would like characters to stay in the films for a fair few films and watch him change and grow. But it's him in this case.
Well, you had that with Gotham.
Yeah, and we haven't watched all them.
No, sorry, I got bored with it.
But you do. No, I think that's what we need, you know. And the Nolan films, there was only 3, but you did see that character evolve in those 3 films.
But I don't want another origin, though. Don't send it back to the beginning.
You don't need
Please don't do it again.
You can do it back to the beginning.
No.
You don't need the origin, but you can do it at the start of his career and him learning.
There's
so
Batman. Much source material to take from that they don't have to.
Now, one of the things that is coming up by numerous people, it is, I'm just going to have to go back in, I think it's 30-year anniversary since the original Batman movie, Tim Burton movie.
Yeah.
So.
You want Tim Burton to come back and do it again? Yeah.
Well, that would be interesting. Well, actually, no, not since. He's not really done a great amount.
Yeah, but it could be his comeback.
But imagine Michael Keaton. Now,
I love
did
Michael
you
Keaton.
ever watch the Batman of the Future, or Batman Beyond as it's known in America?
The cartoon? Yes.
So where you've got the older Batman.
Teaching the youngster.
Michael Keaton would be of the ideal age.
To be an old Batman.
To be an old Batman. An old Bruce Wayne.
Oh, I could see that.
That would work. How good would that be?
That'd be brilliant. So
and then you've got your young Batman learning the ropes.
And then you've got the whole thing that's like set slightly more in the future. With some kind of like cool stuff.
We don't even have to have it in the future. You can still set it now with Batman of the past. Oh yeah, that would be amazing. I think Michael Keaton would be superb. Obviously, at that role.
Yeah,
you know, he could even jump in the suit if he wanted to, just to help out at the end of the fight.
I think he should.
You know, robot suit to keep his legs going. But he's shown, I mean, he seemed to go quiet for a few years, but he's bounced back.
Oh, yeah, he's done a lot of
crazily recently. He's just shown how brilliant he is. I mean, he's doing Beetlejuice as well.
Yes, that's
coming out at some point.
Fantastic.
So I personally think that is the way we should go.
Yeah, they're not listening to you, though.
No, but it's not just me saying it.
Okay.
Kevin Smith, yo.
Oh, okay.
There's people out there shouting and saying... So it's not my idea is what I'm saying. This is not my idea.
You seem to be packaging it as your idea there.
No, this is me stealing ideas off the internet from other people who are much more forward-thinking than myself. Okay, let's do some reviewing.
Do it.
The first book we've got is out as of now, I believe. It's just been launched. This is Real Love, the complete collection by Owen Michael Johnson, who we spoke to at the festival.
He was lovely.
And if I can find it, I'm going to throw a clip of our chat with him in the podcast later on.
Yes.
If it's there, it's there. If it's not, I apologise.
It meant you couldn't find it.
I couldn't find it. Can you give us a blurb?
I can. In a quiet corner of rural England, the lights go down in a small cinema and one little boy is changed forever. Fueled by the flickering images of the silver screen, his imagination takes flight, and his life is transformed as friendships and adventures appear and unfold, shaping the person he will become. Told in 3 acts, Real Love is an exquisitely observed story about the magic of cinema, the heartache of loss, and the pains of growing up.
I think, as it says, the story is about the growth of a child into an adult.
Yes. Yeah, the growing pains as well of a child going into an adult.
And one of the big things is about having that friend when you're a kid and then sort of losing
that was so sad.
The friend. And it does, I don't know if it happens to all of us, it certainly happened to me.
Yeah, I think you do. Because everything, it's all so mutable, isn't it? Also, your life flows.
And it's jumping from primary school to secondary school. Yeah. That's your first, and then from secondary school to uni or wherever you go from life.
And people drift in and out your life.
Yeah. And then you see them years down the line.
Yes. Yeah, then you can catch up again. But...
Or just laugh and say, I've done better than you.
Or catch up again over a coffee.
Or you can just be nice about it and I'll just be the BITH. So, what got me about this comic, one is how much art there is. I know that sounds silly, but
I know what you mean.
There's so many panels and so detailed, descriptive pieces of work in each page. It's mind-blowing in some ways.
Yes.
You're looking at it like, wow, that's taken a while to do.
Yeah, it's a kind of chaos on a page, but in a good way.
Yeah,
it's great.
There's so much information going on.
Yes, so many Easter eggs going on, so many movie.
That's what I was about to get
in the backgrounds and everything.
Certainly for the first part of the book, it is so many looking back at the films he watched.
Yes,
this child watching. I'm sure the right watched growing up.
Yep.
You know, he got Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all those, and he's like, yes, I love this. It's
you can relate to it.
You can. It's why pop culture and everything is doing so well these days. Let's be honest. It's all us oldies looking back at what was great at the time and how rubbish it is. Which it isn't, by the way. But you know what I'm saying.
Well, you're just jaded as an adult.
Yes.
You don't have that lovely innocence and excitement.
It's seeing those things for the first time. To be able to go back and, I don't know, watch RoboCop or something for the first time now would be like amazing.
It would be.
Or it could actually be awful. I'm thinking,
don't think about it.
These graphics are atrocious.
No, don't think about it. But yeah, it was a treat as well, the cinema.
Yeah.
So...
And the story follows him going to work in a cinema as well down the line, which is also interesting, thinking of your first jobs as well. And then also him trying
to... though, at the cinema.
Well, yeah. Well, no, probably not.
No, it would have been hard work. The hours, yeah.
And then also him trying to create his own movie, which is what the main bulk of the story is generally about. And I think we all have that drive and desire as kids to do whatever the dream is. Yeah. And then it's also that loss as you get older, you realise you've failed.
Oh.
Am I destroying everyone's dreams
you
here?
Are. It's like you're stamping on everything now.
Yes, you must all feel my pain. I was never in Star Wars.
You weren't even born for the first one.
Oh, yeah. Damn it.
And I was literally a few weeks old.
You could have been baby.
I could have been a baby in the
You could have been baby Luke. No one had realised.
Baby Luke. I'll tell everyone now I was baby Luke.
But the book itself, yeah, it's a journey. Really enjoyable journey. As I say, the artwork is great all the way through.
Yeah.
And if you're even remotely into film, never mind everything else, it's a valid reason to pick this book up. So
yes,
really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a lovely book.
The next comic is the Awesome Comics podcast. I never remember
Anthology?
the full name of the comic. No, because it's just Awesome Comic. I always just want to call it the Awesome Comic Podcast. I'm not going to do a full review because we've talked about it in the past, but I just want to say the fourth comic itself finishes the stories that are set within the previous three. That being Murder Road by Vincent Hunt and Daniel Mark Chant. Cockney Kung Fu.
What did you say then?
Cockney Kung Fu.
Cockney Kung Fu.
By Tony Esmond and Nick Prolix on the show this episode. And Viper by Dan Butcher. It finishes off all three stories. My favourite, I'm gonna give a favourite. My favourite is Murder Road because it just again reminds me of the type of films I'd watch as a kid. That those on the road, just horror, just cheesiness films. Brings them all to their conclusions. Or does it?
Oh, then you dangled it.
The whole series has just been great fun. And it's interesting to see how they've pulled together to create this piece. You know, all sort of coming together, being the podcast as they are, and then creating this amazing piece of work, which are now out there to the world. This isn't the end, let's be honest. You know, they said it's 4 issues. There's going to be more from these guys. Now, I'm intrigued to see what they do, whether they're going to continue these stories or whether they're going to go completely fresh.
I reckon they'll go completely in another direction.
You reckon so?
Yeah. Should we place a bet?
Let's bet.
Right.
I bet you a pint.
A pint. Wow. Okay.
So I've got. I know. I'm talking about
a pint of wine.
A pint in Kendall Brewery Arts, so it's expensive.
Now you. Okay. I was hoping Wetherspoons, but we'll go with.
No, we're going for the Brewery Arts because it's expensive.
Okay, a pint of wine in the brewery arts.
No, I didn't say a pint of wine.
Pint of vodka in the brewery arts.
But no, check it out. They're launched officially the weekend as this comes out. It's well worth buying the series. Whether they're going to put it together as a whole book, I don't know. I bet they will. But if not, I think digitally you can pay £1 for each copy.
Yeah.
So £4.
That's nothing, is it?
You've got essentially a graphic novels size book there. So brilliant work, guys.
Do it.
And finally, we have The Ether, number 2 by Mr. Matt.
Oh, him.
Garvey.
Right. He was mean to me on Twitter. I'm not talking to him now.
Again, her art is absolutely stunning in this. It continues the story. Now, I was about to say something then.
Don't.
But it would have given away.
Don't give anything away. Yeah, no, don't give anything away.
It really would.
Yeah, no, give it away.
Well, if you've not read issue 1 and you go straight into issue 2, you won't have a clue what...
You should never go straight to issue 2.
Well, some people do.
No. Start at the beginning.
Okay. Essentially, it would break... The whole character is got a mask in issue 1. And,
yes.
And at the end of issue 1, it explains who that character is. And it's not what you think, and that's like the little pull. This story continues a journey. And again, this is definitely not the end. This is sort of definitely the mid break of the story. And it continues a journey into essentially the characters being chased down by the police. Now, I'm laughing here because I just made a balls up, which I've just cut out. Which again would have ruined. It's so hard. It's so hard. This
so much editing in this one. Oh no! Now I'm coughing because of you making me laugh too much.
Right, I'm going to do this. Right, it's a great comic again. Well worth reading.
Yeah, and then don't say any more.
The art is stunning, and that's all I'm going to say because I'm just going to blow it otherwise. I'm just going to ruin it.
Yeah, so stop talking now, please.
I've got to go and edit that bit out.
You have so much editing to do on that one.
Matt Garvey, you're a pain in the backside. No, really enjoyable.
You're not saving yourself now.
I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. Right, let's get Mike and Pete on because they're professional and they know what they're doing. And I've got no idea. Right, we're going to have Mike on chatting Conan and then Pete chatting to Nick Prolix.
Yes.
Because we're too rubbish to actually book guests in time.
Mike's Mutterings.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Mike's Mutterings. This time I'd like to ramble about the thrilling pulp adventure world of Conan. A canon I've loved, lost, got disenfranchised with, and then learned to love again through comics. Conan is the definitive barbarian fantasy character, and so ingrained in popular geek culture it's impossible to ignore the impact his exploits have had on the world of fantasy writing. His unstoppable persona of amoral savagery is a fantasy trope that continues to endure to this day. He's the dark-haired, brooding, self-reflecting barbarian. He wanders the violent and blood-soaked lands of Hyboria, the grandeur of Numidia, the deserts of Shem, land of the sorcerer king Stygia, the wintry wastes of Vanaheim, and the inhospitable hills and valleys of Cimmeria, his homeland. He encounters blood cults, loathsome creatures, powerful sorcerers, and great treasures on his journey through these savage lands. It was Robert E. Howard who brought Conan to the world in the pages of Weird Tales back in 1932. Both Weird Tales and Strange Tales magazines spawned the careers of some of the best and most famous creative writers. We're including H.P. Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, Ray Bradbury, and even August Derleth in that list. Conan was not the first sword and sorcery creation of Howard either, having first began with Cull of Atlantis. But with the success of Conan and the creation of the Hyborian Age world setting, he became the father of the sword and sorcery genre. When his short stories gained success, he began to build the world around them, building on ideas first started in his first Cull fiction. The Hyborian Age is actually part of Earth's history, a time before recorded history, but after the sinking of Atlantis. Opinion on this prehistory setting has ranged from 10,000 years BC to even the last glacial period. This is an age where barbarism is the natural state of mankind, and civilization is its downfall. The Hyborian Age world is populated with many peoples and races, all inspired from real historical lands, empires and mythologies. But this swords and sorcery is very low fantasy, and by that I mean that although magic and monsters exist, they are rare and worthy of fear. Magic is a dark, ritualistic, blood sacrifice kind of affair, and monsters are summoned demonic horrors. Exotic beasts exist, but they're just that, powerful and frightening prehistoric animals, but animals of the time all the same. The key ingredient to Conan is the concept of destiny. Conan wanders this land, treading the path from savage to king. This is very important, because although the stories are published out of chronological order, there are defined ages to Conan. Conan the Savage, Conan the Thief, the Barbarian, the Mercenary, the Pirate, the Brigand, the Wanderer, the Conqueror, and finally the King. Broken down into different eras by different people, they all conform to a singular progression towards King of Aquilona. The Weird Tales Conan stories have been collected and published since the 50s, in various editions. Some collected like stories, others grouped by era, and some tried chronological. It was a bit of a mess, really. I probably read my first Conan books when I was 10 or 11, along with Conan and Savage Sword of Conan comics from Marvel. We're talking 80s here. Now, these comics were wonderful. The artwork fascinated me, and were so different from my staple diet of Star Wars and 2000 AD, they complemented each other very well. But I'll go into the history of the comics in a moment. I continued my love of Conan through the years, dipping in and out of his various comic incarnations. Fast forward to the early 2000s, when the franchise transferred over to Dark Horse. I thought at that point I might revisit the source material, and bought the completed collected works of Conan, a huge leather-bound edition featuring the most complete collection anywhere. And this is where my disillusion with Howard's work began. 10-year-old me was thrilled by the action, the swashbuckling, the getting the girl, and the flood of fantastical settings. What I didn't appreciate was the really overwhelming and in-your-face racism and misogyny. These were written in the 30s, and the "it was of its time" argument really doesn't cut it here. It's way beyond that. I'd like to think that if I'd have read certain stories, even when I was 10, that I would have been struck by it even then. I get the concept of the brutality of men and peoples of one province slaughtering neighbours to extinction just for resources. But Howard's fixation on race and, moreover, the protection of the purity of that race is quite overwhelming. Skin colour is prominent when establishing who the savage and tribal are versus the honourable and civilised. The hero and defenceless love interest to rescue trope is used a lot. All very pulpy, you think, but it really does become excessive. There are a plethora of stories about women enslaved or harassed in which Conan comes to the rescue, unless, of course, as is often the case, he's the actual one doing the harassing and enslaving, and somehow still is the hero of the piece. One such story, The Veil of Lost Women, is almost comical in its sexism and racist tone. White women enslaved by dark-skinned tribes escapes into Conan's arms, only to stumble on a lost tribe of Amazonian-like lesbians. It's impossible to read without thinking of the Futurama episode, Amazon Women on the Moon. Snoo indeed. By now, I was also playing an RPG based on Conan, and this regrettable rereading really soured my enjoyment of adventuring in Hyboria. But this is where comics saved the day. While early Marvel Conan feels dated, it still instilled the 10-year-old me's version of Conan, the adventuring and the fantastical land filled with wonders and peoples with no hint of racist cultural misappropriations. As with all long-running comics, the characterizations and stories matured along, I guess, with myself, with the possible exception of 2000 AD, which always seemed to be ahead of its time. So here are the 3 eras of Conan comics. Era 1, the Marvel years, 1970 to 2003. Obviously, this started before I was born, so I only dipped in and out of the Marvel Conan. Mostly this was through Marvel UK reprints and collected works. I'd only read a few of Howard's original stories at this point, but I did recognise adaptations when they did them, and they seemed quite faithful. Roy Thomas was the principal writer, and artist John Buscana, who I knew from Silver Surfer, drew much of it. They captured the thrills of pulp writing, but I actually found my version of Conan in the pages of Savage Sword of Conan. Savage Sword was originally printed as a magazine in the US, which conveniently freed them from adhering to the US Comics Code, allowing Ray Buscana and now Inca Alfredo Alcala a lot more freedom in terms of story themes and violence. The stories were pretty random chronological-wise, but tended mostly to feature an older, more grisly and weathered Conan. The stark black and white artwork drew you into the shorter, sharper stories. Most importantly, they adapted some of the best of Howard's stories, the ones that still stand up to scrutiny today, such as Hour of the Dragon, aka Conan the Conqueror, where he's already king of Aquilonia. He's deposed, locked in a dungeon, thought dead before escaping, and then goes on an epic quest to conquer Aquilonia again. He sees him defeating a necromancer and regaining his throne, and it's really quite a thrilling tale. It's actually a complex story. It's a retelling from Howard of a few of his short stories to make a decent novel-length story. It's a lot more mature than his earlier works, and it transferred to the comic brilliantly. Marvel also did comic adaptations of the films, which were very so-so. But interestingly, Conan was considered part of the Marvel Universe. Doctor Strange travels back to the Hyborian Age, and Conan makes several, and sometimes very inconspicuous background appearances in many of the Marvel titles. There's a wonderful what-if episode of him facing off against Wolverine. No spoilers. Era 2, the Dark Horse years, 2003 to 2018. The Dark Horse Conan was a fresh take, and I managed to at least follow the various series and mini-series, managing to read quite a lot of it. The first series was Conan by Kurt Busiek. Carrie Nord does the artwork, and it sets out the format of all future series in that it's a mix of faithful retellings and brand new stories. The Dark Horse arc was chronological, and I think this gives a better feel of Conan travelling towards his destiny as king. Mike Mignola even turns up as a guest writer for the Hall of the Dead. Conan the Cimmerian follows from Timothy Truman. Then this is followed by The Road of Kings from the typewriter of Marvel original writer Roy Thomas. And around about this point was when I jumped in. I had to track down back issues and compilations to read back up to this point, but I think it was a good jumping on point. Brian Wood's Conan the Barbarian follows, and this covers the Queen of the Black Coast, a particular favourite of mine, as this covers the Conan the Pirate era that appealed to the younger me. Then we have Conan the Avenger. Fred Van Lent's work was featuring some of the best stories, but A Witch Shall Be Born is a real standout Conan adventure. Conan the Slayer from Cullen Byrne then features another important story, The Devil in Iron, before Dark Horse finishes the series with King Conan from the talented hands of Thomas Giorello. This covers what I think are the finest Conan adventures: The Scarlet Citadel, The Phoenix on the Sword, and The Hour of the Dragon. The Book of Thoth miniseries is also highly recommended, but 2017's Conan Wonder Woman mashup is recommended thanks to the wonderful Gail Simone who wrote it. I will revisit Gail Simone on another episode, especially around how she rewrote the rules with her version of Red Sonja. Anyway, I've been getting myself back into reading these books because a while back I backed the Kickstarter for a brand new Conan role-playing game. It's from the games makers Modiphius, and they're very good at taking a franchise such as Conan or John Carter that, although they are staples of fantasy writing, have a somewhat dated or inappropriate source material, and then updating it in a way that keeps all the best aspects and feel of the source work, but presenting it into a modern, accessible format for today. And so I've been buying the Dark Horse Conan Omnibus volumes to build up a comprehensive collection of the Dark Horse saga. Unfortunately, Volume 1, Birth of a Legend, is out of print and I just can't find it for love nor money, but I will persevere. But anyway, thanks to Dark Horse and Modiphius, I now feel comfortable returning to the savage lands of Hyperborea. But it doesn't end there, and if you too want a starting point for Conan, then you're in for a treat, because January was the start of Era 3, the Marvel years, again. That's right, the IP returned to Marvel, and they began in January with Conan the Barbarian. This was closely followed in February by The Savage Sword of Conan and The Age of Conan Belit, which is a 5-part miniseries. I already have issue 1 and 2 of Conan the Barbarian, and I feel it's utterly safe in the hands of writer Jason Aaron. He starts with a nod to the original Marvel run and then throws you straight into the story. Set in the King Conan years, it starts the tale of the life and death of Conan. Part 1, The Weird of the Crimson Witch. Mahmoud Asrar's artwork captures the tone well, and he really charges the action scenes with a sense of power and strength too. And I love the colour work from Matthew Wilson as well. It's got quite a different feel, and this is a brand new tale. It manages to step back and forth through Conan's earlier years as well, sort of flashback style. There is a sly wit that's been sadly missing to this point as well, and I think that Marvel has taken us somewhere different and new with our favourite Cimmerian. I hope you join in the journey too. Till next time.
So we're with Owen Michael Johnson. How are we doing? Talking about your book, Real Love. So tell us a little bit about.
So Real Love is the coming-of-age story of a young boy that forms a relationship with his local cinema and decides he wants to be a famous film director. And it takes place 3 summers over the course of his life as he tries to do that and makes friends, falls in love. It's based on the cinema, the Alhambra in Penrith, because I grew up in Kirkoswald. It's a hometown show for me in many ways.
Okay.
But yeah.
So is this something you wanted to do, or is it just a story you made?
Yeah. So it's semi-autobiographical in that, I mean, there are fantasy elements in the same way that with Spaced, or things like that these fantasy elements grow out of the character's imagination and things like that. But yeah, it skews kind of close to my experiences in my life. Obviously, I didn't become a famous film director, but we'll see. Yeah,
you never know.
We'll see. But yeah, it was a very, very personal story to me, and it's kind of about memory, about the place that you grow up, the complex relationship you have with where you grew up, and how you love it, but you also want to move away for different reasons, and those kind of things.
I think it's interesting, in particular about cinemas, because it seems there's quite a few cinemas around that people are really just wanting to protect, to look after, these individual independent cinemas.
They're community spaces a lot of the time, that in the same way that comic book stores are. They are watering holes. They are places for people to meet. They're into the same things, and also for me anyway, cinema is one of the last big rituals that we have in going into a space and kind of, worshipping the screen, as it were. So yeah, cinema is my church in a way. But I would agree with it. Yeah.
And an awkward question then: if cinema's your church, what's your favourite film?
That's really hard. Really hard.
What's your favourite film today?
Today, I mean, a long-standing one is Raiders of the Lost Ark for me, because it's just pure cinema, and it reminds me so much of childhood. I think it's perfectly made. Big fan of Heathers from the 80s. Jason the Argonauts was one of the key ones when I was growing up that was like, this is crazy. There's fighting skeletons. I want to do something weird with fighting skeletons. It's kind of ignited the imagination in a big way. That wasn't really a one-film answer, but
no, that's quite all right. The second thing is, not seen any of them at the cinema, and probably never will see them at the cinema.
Raiders is often at the Prince Charles in London. They do a lot of reruns of Raiders. It's a bit far away. But you're right. There's a lot more places doing rerun cinema these days, which is great.
So, last of all, if you want to grab your book, where can you find it?
Yep, so we have advanced copies at the Lakes this weekend, and then it's actually on sale in January 24th next year, but it's available at pre-order now. You can pre-order it on the Unbound website, or via Amazon, foils, places like that.
Thank you very much.
No worries, thank you guys.
How do? Welcome to Breakdowns, comic art section of the podcast. I'm Pete Taylor. I'm a small press comics creator and illustrator. Online, I trade as This Man, This Pete. This episode, I'm talking to another comics creator about comics, how they create their own comics, and breaking down one of their favourite comic artists. This episode, it's the mighty Nick Prolix. Hey, Nick, thanks for coming on.
Cheers, Pete. Thanks for having me.
What's your first memory of comics?
I mean, as a kid, I was an Asterix fan.
Yeah.
And I think I've said this before. I think I got one of these like sort of binary brains. Like it was you're either Asterix or you're Tintin.
Yeah.
And so like I never had any time for Tintin. It was all Asterix for me. And
it was one of the first debates actually on the Lakes Festival. They had an Asterix versus Tintin debate. Where they insisted there had to be, there was a vote and there had to be a result, and I'm pretty sure Asterix won.
Well, it's got to win. And I think I also had these Corgi Peanuts collections, these little paperbacks. And I loved those. And I think I don't even remember buying them. It's like I remember, Asterix was a thing I used to go to the shop, go to W.H. Smith's on a Saturday and get. Buy an Asterix, but the Peanuts just sort of appeared in the house. I think one of my cousins must have passed them down to us. And I loved those, especially, because it was like the sort of early 50s Peanuts where Snoopy kind of still looked like a dog, right? And, he wasn't sort of Joe Cool yet. And,
Charlie Brown had a very, very round head. It was quite human, wasn't it? Yeah. They used to chop the strips up back then as well, didn't they? And kind of reassemble them into a portrait page. So you had some quite strange layouts in some of the Corgi reprints that I had. Asterix was printed landscape, if I remember rightly, on some of my black and white Corgis. Right. And then on the Peanuts ones, they kept them portrait and they just kind of trickled them down a page, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I love it. So I've got some of those. I haven't got them anymore. You know, I'm sort of classic. My mum binned all my comics when I was a kid. But you know, some of the Fantagraphics Peanuts, the lovely packs, and just seeing them, you know, sort of laid out, you know, as they, you know, as Schultz kind of intended. It's kind of nice to see them like that.
Oh yeah, I got a couple of the Pogo Fantagraphic reprints, the Walt Kelly, and they're just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, great books. So, are you still a regular comics reader?
Yeah, I'm a regular comics buyer.
Yeah.
I'm not, and I'm an irregular reader. I'm a stockpiler. I think, you know, like that's the sort of truth of it. You know, like I'm sort of one of these people who always binges, Comixology sales. With the intention of getting round to reading some of it occasionally. Yeah. I've got a pull list that we haven't really got a local comic. We've got a Forbidden Planet, and you know, so they, I get my monthlies there, and I mean, I had to. It was back to when I was a kid. You know, I used to get them at the newsagents, and I had a pull list at my newsagent.
Right.
I used to go up there, and he'd get my comics in every month, and he'd write my name on the top.
Yeah.
So they were just totally ballsed up no point slabbing those, you know, they were just.
There's a few Prolix copies floating around out there, yeah. Oh, no, I remember that as well. My Nana and Grandad used to get a comic for each of the grandchildren each week. And they all came back with their grandparents' names written at the top.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to your spotlight artist. So, who've you chosen?
So Daniel Clowes, who, sort of the more I think about it, you know, I think is, who I would sort of hold up as my, I don't know, guiding light, whatever you want to call it. Like, sort of, you know, my ambition is to, you know, was to be this guy. This guy seems to, like, you know, the sort of career trajectory, his work, his style, his voice, everything was just like, you know, just sort of hit me. Kind of when I came back to, I'm one of those people who, sort of like an early 80s, 90s Marvel reader, into Image. And then I sort of dropped off when I went to university. And then I came back to comics at that sort of, the sort of graphic novel boom of the, early 2000s. So, Jimmy Corrigan. And I remember picking up David Boring, was like my first Dan Clowes book. And I subsequently gave it away. I think I might have given it to a girl that I liked. Or probably her brother, in trying to like wheedle my way.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the sort of time when I was kind of reconnecting with comics. And I think that's when the Ghost World movie came out.
Right. Because that's probably where most people will know him from, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I think I saw the film before I read the comic, and I never read it in 8-ball. I read it in the in the sort of Jonathan Cape kind of collected.
Yeah.
But when I read it, I mean, I loved the film. The film was phenomenal, but the comic is obviously quite different narratively from the film in a lot of ways, especially with the Steve Buscemi character. But just when I read Ghost World, it kind of I couldn't actually believe that like a middle-aged American man
right
written these two teenage girls, and had just nailed it.
Yeah.
Like it was, and I guess, you know, like the nearest equivalent I can think of is kind of like, you know, sort of Maggie and Hopi, you know, to sort of, you know, Becky and Enid. There's this like kind of little subgenre of comics of kind of like, you know, sort of middle-aged man capturing teenage female friendship.
All right.
That I kind of just think, I just don't quite understand, you know, kind of, you know, where, you know, sort of this idea of like, you know, write what you know, but, you know,
Yeah.
actually, you know, this kind of almost like sort of ventriloquism, that someone like, you know, Dan Clowes or Jaime manages to pull off, and really, you know, it was just phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, they started, I mean, a bit of background, I suppose, to anybody who doesn't know, and they started, I suppose, pretty much at the same time, the Hernandez brothers and Clowes. They sort of came out of Fantagraphics in the mid 80s, around then.
Right.
So at the same time as they were doing, as the Hernandez brothers were doing Love and Rockets, his first sort of start at Fantagraphics was the 8-Ball comic you mentioned, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which actually spun off quite a few. I mean, he obviously developed concepts in this. It's a kind of anthology title, wasn't it? That had some bonkers characters. I mean, and there was the kind of was it a hip detective, Lloyd Llewellyn, I think?
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, it obviously showed, and his work since, this love of comics and to every aspect of comics in terms of the history. He has styles that hark back very much to early sort of 30s comics, but the typography, I mean, it calls back even the adverts, doesn't it, in some aspects of his work?
Absolutely. Like you say, it's the craft of it. You know, he's kind of completely. I'm you know, you can. There's some great interviews and sort of videos of him, sort of process stuff early on, and you sort of see him using the you know, the zipper tone for
you
know, the color
for the shading,
you know, and it's just like you say, the hand lettering, you know, that, and he's got different styles of hand you know, so he can sometimes you know, he'll switch from that kind of sort of block, you know, the sort of block capitals, you know, and then he's got this kind of that sort of mid-century kind of kooky sort of 50s sort of hand. It's almost, you know, it's more lowercase, you know, the sort of lowercase kind of sort of jankly kind of font that the typeface that he kind of that he uses, especially in you know, in the other book we were going to talk about, you know, in Ice Haven, you know, you can
very much so. I went back to find my 8-Balls. I know I'd got a stack somewhere. I couldn't find them.
Right.
Don't know where they were. I mean, I found a stack of my Love and Rocket stuff, which is great.
Well, it's like 8-Ball was a, you know, I never read 8-Ball. I read one issue of 8-Ball, and it was, I think again, a sort of around that time, sort of early 2000s. He changed the format,
right?
And he changed it into this kind of, again, sort of harking, you know, to the link to the Hernandez brothers. He changed it to this magazine format,
right?
Big square, you know, heavy card cover, you know, full color, and that's what. And Ice Haven was all in one issue of 8-Ball.
Oh, right, in a magazine format.
Yeah, in the magazine format. That's where I found it. You know, it was just, I mean, I was in the comic shop. I was in Gosh, you know, and I'm looking around and I see this thing, and it's like, you know, whatever it was at the time, I don't know, like £3 or whatever, you know, and it was bigger than a normal comic. You know, it was more pages, and it was a full kind of story. And I thought, right, I'll have that.
Brilliant. Oh, that's interesting, because obviously, I mean, I read a lot of Dan Clowes earlier on, so it was really interesting. It was great to be able to catch up to a certain extent from what I could. I mean, I've become a little too accustomed to everything being available digitally, so I was quite surprised when I went looking that I couldn't get any on Comixology.
Yeah.
So, you know, which was surreal. But luckily, I managed to get Ice Haven pretty quickly from a used bookstore online. And the first thing that, is surprising from what you were just saying is that the book is quite a small, pretty close to A5 hardback book.
Yeah.
And then for you to say that now that it was actually first published as a large form magazine, when I'm going through now, I'm obviously seeing, right, he's just chopped every strip in half and presented it in this way, which is interesting in itself. The fact that he's completely changed the format of the whole thing, it's really interesting because it works so well in this format. I mean, we've both produced some of our own comics in this format. There is something about a landscape format that I suppose apes the magazine form somewhat, because you've just got that more concentration on width rather than height, which the magazine does give you slightly more width than a standard comic page. But it's an interesting choice of changing the format that way.
And like you say, it also gives you that, because I sort of, have these ambitions of someday, putting the sheep and the wolves into a kind of magazine format, just stacking those two.
Yeah.
Two pages up and just being able, and that gives you your A4 page.
Yeah. So doing it the opposite way in a sense. But okay, that's cool.
I think he did the same thing with the Death Ray. I think the Death Ray was. I haven't read the Death Ray, but I think that was definitely again a single issue of the sort of new format 8-ball. And when I've seen that in, collected, it was again done in this, kind of really sort of cute landscape kind of brick. And the hardback. It's got, like you say, it's got sort of really kind of nice, sort of tactile quality to it. You know what I mean? Like it's an artifact, and exactly what you said about not being able to find him online. And I think that's got to be his decision.
Very much so, yeah.
All of the Love and Rockets library you can get on Comixology. So Fantagraphics constantly doing sales.
There's some I buy a lot of Fantagraphics stuff because my shelf space now is just full of all my comics. I got no space for shelves, never mind too many comics. But I love a lot of the history books the Fantagraphics do. They do some great old reprints like we were just talking about, but also just a Mort Meskin one I bought the other day, Russell Patterson one. And they're just, even though I love I go to my inspiration set shelf and I pull a book off and just look through it just to get excited or to get some new ideas. So, it was a shame, but equally, this book, the other advantage of having a physical book is it gets picked up and looked through. And just leaving this on the side, every single member of my household has noticed it, picked it up, and started flicking through it.
Yeah, because I think that's got to do with his kind of dedication to the sort of physicality of the sort of sanctity of the comic as a physical object. What I mean? It's to do with that sort of, it's kind of been sort of fully, it's gone all in on the, every aspect of the craft. It's a kind of artist, he is, the sort of consummate comics artisan, like you say, it's everything from the layout, the designs, the typography, even something like in Icehaven, like the what do you call it, like the indicia, it's got little jokes in there,
the color of the pages change. So you've got stark white modern pages that are set in this present sort of style, present day, and then when it goes back in sort of in Time and Ape's earlier formats, sort of sort of detective strip, the shades of the page change appropriately. And I loved the bit at the end when you have actually one of the characters talking about the author. So instead of it being just the little paragraph at the end of the book, you've got one of the characters giving a potted history of him, and then asking the reader, do you think the author likes me? It's which is brilliant. Yeah, I love the chance to catch up with him. So it was great for you to bring this book up. So I mean, if you were to recommend a particular book or a couple of books to anyone listening that wanted to catch up with Dan Clowes, what Icehaven I think would be a good one to give a good idea of what he can pull off on a comic page, certainly.
Yeah.
And then the others you mentioned, what would you suggest?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I would say that I would say Ghost World, obviously, because I think someone sort of said this to me online recently as well. It's his most human book. It's real characters talking, like real people, about real situations, real emotions.
Yes.
And it's kind of consistent in its, sort of stylistically. It's kind of a piece. He does, occasionally he'll sort of drop in into that more sort of, that sort of Lloyd Llewellyn kind of, that's the slightly grotesque face, that he'll draw where, this there becomes just a little bit too much detail.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of that sort of growth, and that to be honest, that's what put me off. Like the early Clowes stuff was just like, it was all the characters were, and they were, but they were all ugly. Like they were all these like really gross kind of, it's like a proper freak show. And it's like, oh, I'm gonna spend £5, whatever, get this comic. I'm just gonna look at all these people I don't want to look at.
Yeah,
it's just like thanks for. And Ghost Worlds, I think, is where, he starts to, maybe not starts to develop, because like I say, I can't. This is like my earliest. I don't have a frame of reference much sort of earlier than in terms of Ghost World, but it's you start to get that sort of Dan Clowes girl style that he's, that sort of very clean, very the kind of sort of hipster. Character, but also that very clean line, and he just draws kind of these sort of gorgeous women, right? And that was partly kind of Dave, the thing with David Boring was just like it was, I was literally in love with Clowes' kind of his kind of girl was like sort of my ideal at the time, but. Icehaven, I think, is kind of formally, it was the formal playfulness, the formal invention, like you say, the complete mastery of these different styles, kind of, being able to sort of put on, the sort of different artistic movements, different kind of cartoonist sort of styles, being able to wear them. And flip between them and pick the appropriate tone that would match the strip with the style. It's that's kind of what blew my mind when I first read Icehaven. It's interesting to compare it to something like Wilson, which I reread again recently, and that's completely different because he's telling a story, a kind of a continual narrative in one-page chunks. Almost like page strips. They're kind of like maybe like old Sunday strips, and he changes style, from page to page. So some of it is in his more realistic style, some of it is very cartoony, some of it is kind of very sort of Bigfoot kind of cartooning, some of it is more alt comics, kind of has that sort of risograph kind of look to it, and it switches with every page. And I sometimes think maybe in that book it's hard to see why he's what's the intention behind the stylistic choice. It's just sometimes it feels like he needs to change a page, So it's now he has to change. So it's like someone flicking the the remote control, constantly changing channel.
Yeah.
Whereas in Icehaven, every single choice is kind of dictated. Every artistic choice, is dictated by what's he trying to do in the story at that moment.
Yes.
And that's what kind of makes it work so well.
It's an angle that comics can pull out of its arsenal when it's done well. I think there's been a few instances, isn't it, where to recall like the Golden Age, an artist might ape the style of, say, Joe Kubert, if they're able to do it as well. Whereas he's taken it, I suppose, a little more generically, in a sense that it fits his style. He's not trying to make it look like an artist of a time, but to just change the format of the comic, the stylistic elements within it, lettering, or even the when it's changing the size and the style of the characters. Well, I mean, if we move on from Dan to your own work, I mean, I can see, obviously, there are elements that do move from, I can see as an influence from certainly Icehaven, which I've read in particular, and some of your work. I mean, like we've mentioned, the typography. Typography is incredibly important, I think, in your work. Is that something that was a conscious sort of thing that you brought from one to the other, or was that something that you've always been interested in, and they just have similarities?
I think it's that thing of kind of like you're looking at the sort of models, you know what I mean? Like you're looking at not so much permission, but you kind of you're trying to find out, how's this stuff done? How's this stuff made? And you can see his signature, because you see his signature, in every aspect. Like, so it's with the hand lettering, with the his brushmanship. It has this very sort of hands-on. It seemed to me that's how you made comics, right?
Right.
So I have a film studies background, and sort of very early on, I sort of realised, it's obvious, it's how much work, how big, a film set is, in terms of collaboration and all the people involved, right? And what I liked about comics was you could do all of it. You could do all of it yourself. You make the whole. You can do, and I think once I sort of went down that path of like, well, I can do all of this myself, I should do all of it myself, right? There's part of it that and because I've had no, I won't say formal training. I'm not. I didn't go to art college. I didn't. I'm not a graphic designer by trade. Do you know what I mean? This isn't sort of my background. It was all, I had to sort of pick it up, and the only way, let's say, the only way you can learn to do it is by doing it. So, so it's particularly the hand lettering, trying to develop that, being someone who's got a kind of very naturally is a very untidy, messy.
Well, I am surprised to hear that, Nick, I have to say, because one thing that is a hallmark of what you do is the design of it. And I think that, I would not have known that you had no design background when I look at what you produce. Slang Pictorial is, a standout book in terms of its design. It leaps off the table. I love the look that you've put to your covers on that. And inside, when you have a title page and when you have small breaks from one story to another, the choices that you're using for your title card, it might be a shop front, mightn't it be, or a pub sign, something like that, even a sort of slightly movie postery sort of element to it, it works brilliantly. And when, the listeners can see an incredible amount of stuff that you're posting all the time. When you posted up some hand lettering examples recently, that they're brilliant. I'd have thought you were doing it for a lot longer than you're telling me now that you've done. That it's brilliant, and a testament to that, what you're saying, which is the only way to do it is to do it. I'm constantly telling my daughters the same thing. You do listen to podcasts, and people saying the best way to learn is, you have to get through that, make the mistakes, and get through it. Yeah. So you mentioned the brush. Is that your main tool of choice?
I tried it initially. I tried. I think I've done like everybody. Sort of obsessively kind of tried every single possible inking tool. Early doors, like a few years back. I remember discovering that I could do the sort of clean line style in Illustrator. Just use the computer.
Yeah.
And I just did it, and I was just like, oh, this is great. It's fantastic. Just just fixed my sort of shaky hand. It would kind of correct that. And something like Clip Studio Paint, is even better. In the sort of Command Z. And then I thought again, it's this. I think partly it's I don't know if it's partly just getting older. It's kind of nostalgia. But sort of wanting to go back to how I used to like make comics when you're a kid. Like you just pick up stuff and you just use what you've got.
Yeah.
Like you just use whatever pen, like just use a biro and you draw something with that, or you'd use, Sharpie and just use that.
Start at the top left.
Yeah,
the page, draw a box. Continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of wanting to sort of slow down the process a little bit and kind of just, sort of enjoy the physicality of making something and being like in the moment of making the art, mark making, I guess, So I tried to start with a brush, and like everybody, it was just complete. It was horrible. And then sort of shifting to a brush pen, which I just found easier to handle.
Yeah.
And I used a brush pen for quite. So the first two issues of Slang Pictorial were all done with the brush pen.
Okay.
And
so was that a pencil brush pen? Is it?
It's so I used a Kuretake,
right.
And I've tried the Sable. So if you want to get really go in deep,
go for it, mate. I like a bit of pen processor.
Kuretake doing like a synthetic brush and a Sable brush.
Oh, okay.
And the Sable brush is obviously a lot more expensive than the synthetic one. And actually, to be honest, I found that the Sable unexpectedly, I found it harder to hold the line and hold the shape than the synthetic. Now the synthetic one wears out quicker. You have to replace them more frequently, but you can obviously they're cheaper than replacing a Sable one. But if anyone out there wants a Kuretake Sable brush pen, just buy a cheap Kuretake plastic pen, brush pen, and then just get the Sable
just get the nib, right? Yeah, the brush, right?
Because it's tons cheaper than if you try and buy it in the whole set, and then you can just you've got a spare one like that. So that's my tip for saving a bit of cash. Yeah, and the brush pen, I love. It doesn't feel like you're using a brush. It feels like you're using a pen, so I've got that control. But you get the lovely smooth line. You can do the thick and the thin. It's beautiful. It's great. Mm-hmm. It takes ages. It takes me a long time. And then what I found was I was then having to switch between because I'm quite kind of heavy-handed. Having to switch to microns for little details.
Yeah.
And it just slows the process down. So the last issue and the stuff that I've been doing recently, I've switched to just a dip pen,
right?
Which sounds like it's just one thing, but we're talking months of trying every bloody nib, and
Oh, I know.
But the good thing with that is you can do everything. You just hold this one pen and you can do all of it. You can do your tiny details, you can do your cross hatching, you can do everything, and it just speeds up the process slightly. I know it does sound sounds a bit stupid now that I say it out loud, having to sort of put one pen down and pick another one up. But I found that when you're trying to knock out pages at quite a lick, you just for anything that you can do that's going to speed up your process.
Well, also you've got your drying time to take into account, haven't you? So if you're using one tool and then bringing another one in, I'm so mucky. I'm constantly smearing.
Yeah.
And I haven't got a decent white out. So when I'm working, I look like I've been down a coal mine sometimes. The state I get in.
Yeah.
But I was just reading Jaime's book by Todd Hignite, I think his name is. He's done a have you seen that?
Yeah.
And there's a whole page on his desk, and he's got all his pens. He uses one dip pen.
Yeah.
He's got one dip pen, and he's got one lettering pen, and then he's got a few other sort of finesseful pens for like when he's doing his blacks.
Yeah.
So he's got one black for just the edges and then one black for filling. I mean, that's fine because that's all stuff you do at the end. But he's got one pen.
Yeah.
He's like,
And I call it justification for. I'm always looking for sort of digging around in like exactly that. Looking at people's biographies, looking at the art books, trying to find someone saying somewhere, giving you, here's the magic, here's the secret.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the Belgians was told early on. Switch from the brush if you're not going to be able to produce your pages fast enough with the brush, you're going to have to switch to the dip pen, and doing that sped up his process. So it's just like when you find something like that, you're like, oh my god, I'm not an idiot, this actually could
completely. There's one podcast I was listening to, was a modern guy, and he was lucky enough to get a table next to Joe Sinnott. Right. So he's sat next to Joe Sinnott, of course, he's got piles of people coming past his table every day, and he's doing sketches and he's inking stuff for people. And then there's one guy comes over and he's waiting for his piece, I think, from Joe Sinnott, and he picks one of Joe Sinnott's pens up and he's just staring at his pen for ages until Joe Sinnott says to the guy, he says, "The secret's not in the pen."
Yeah.
And there is that element to slightly grail hunting a pen. But for certain aspects of your work, like you were just describing, when you do find that pen that is the one for you, it does feel sort of revelatory sometimes, doesn't it? Because I sometimes shake things up and I think, oh, I did my last strip, using this style. I started using Rotrins when I was, first doing it, which then I thought, oh, this is all wrong. But then certain characters and certain strips, I still use them just because that's the way I've always done it.
Right.
But, I have sometimes certain tools that I associate with certain strips and certain, pens that only seem to work in certain situations.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what size do you work at?
so now I work at A3.
Right.
And initially, so Slang Pictorial started, the sheep novel started as a webcomic, and I was doing it A4.
Right.
And that was just because it was quicker. I could get it, get pages done quicker. But and then when it came to so I was scanning those on like an old little A4 scanner, and then scaling them down to A5 to print. And then I think 2 years ago now, I got an A3 printer and with a scanner, A3 scanner printer thing, and so I could scale up. And as soon as I scaled up, obviously you've got a bit more room to sort of stretch your legs with the art and the backgrounds and stuff. But it obviously you just got that bit more real estate. You've got to cover, just more ink. You've got to get more coverage on the paper.
Yeah. So a bit longer. So that A3 is for a whole Slang Pictorial page, or?
Yeah, so I've got a little grid that I've templated up, and I print that out onto just sheets of sort of A3. Sort of, I don't know. It's not Bristol, but it's got a little bit of a tooth to it. Kind of paper, and I draw straight to that, and again, because I was initially drawing the pages and then inking over the top, so I was blue penciling and then inking over the top of the A4. I just carried on blue penciling even though I was drawing them big. But I don't ink on my pencils. I keep the pencils, scan them, reprint those out on Bristol, and then I ink on the Bristol. So I end up with a pen, for each page. I've got two originals, if you like. I've got the pencil,
sheet of pencils,
and a sheet of the inks, and the blue pencil's actually sort of stupid. Like I don't need to draw it in blue anymore because I'm not on top of it. But
it just can get in the way sometimes.
But I've got kind of just sort of used to doing it, and blue lead costs more than normal lead. It's just, but like it's like a thing now, and I'm just sort of stuck with it, and I kind of quite like it. And so,
do you do any jiggery pokery in Photoshop between your pencils and your inks, or are you?
I do it all on the page. I cut bits out, I redraw them. I snip out, someone's, rub it out so many times that I tear a hole in the paper, so I have to rub it out and do a face and stick it over, just proper, cut and paste with scissors and masking tape.
I was looking through some of James Harron's original art online the other day, and it's brilliant. He's literally, he doesn't even bother sort of gluing it on. He's literally got two massive bits of, it looks like white insulation sort of tape either side of a panel, just kind of like, he's stuck it on, he's in the groove. It's like that. That's somebody else's problem. Production can sort that out. Here you go, boom, stuck on. It's brilliant. Oh, great. Well, okay, I hope that wasn't too much process chat for the listeners. I'm sure they'll let us know, or hopefully let us know if it's not, but I love hearing how people work and produce their stuff. So do you want to tell us about your current projects and give some plugs to what you're working on at the moment?
So I think, am I right, this might drop on the...
Yeah, this will be, I think, Friday the 1st. So I think it is actually the day of True Believers, isn't it?
So I think True Believers is the 2nd, isn't it? It's the Saturday.
Right.
So I'll be at True Believers next Saturday, and I will be. It's the 4th and final issue of the Awesome Comics anthology, which means part 4, final part of the first chapter of Cockney Kung Fu. And obviously Murder Road and Viper by Vince Hunt and Dan Butcher and
so that's the first appearance of issue 4, is it, True Believers?
So Tony Esmond, the writer on Cockney Kung Fu, sent me a little video of the unboxing of the, so I've seen a PDF, and I get my sort of box fresh issues on next Saturday.
Brilliant.
Looking forward to that, and that'll be the sort of the end of that, that arc, if you like. You see,
right.
It tells a full story. You've got 40 pages of we got 3 stories, 40-page for each one. So that's going to drop then, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be back on the 1st at Broken Frontier with the start of my next sort of round, next season of Bullpen Boot Camp.
Yeah, which is your a brilliant series of it's comic creator biographies and the sort of the messages that creators can divine out of their careers, isn't it? It's a lovely series that you've done. So that's available on your website as well as you post that on social media, don't you?
Yeah. So this month I've been reposting it all for the Learnery hashtag, which is the Etherington Brothers big sort of push at the start of the year to get as much free online art tutorial stuff out there as possible. So it's there. There's the archive is over at Broken Frontier. And it'll be every Friday, fortnightly. I give myself this little fortnightly deadline to get out another boot camp, and next week will be Tezuka. So it's my first manga.
Right.
Creator, and this kind of goes back to that what you were saying before about kind of learning from. What you can learn from the sort of history of comics, kind of like partly this sort of the series is me trying to teach myself like the history of comics, but also what can I learn about the mistakes, what mistakes can I avoid, what sort of tricks, tips, what lessons can I learn from these creators that kind of smashed it, or in their own way, and kind of, and then just sort of putting it out there for other people. But it's really a sort of self study program, if you like.
Well, I mean, what's great about them as well. It's great that you do almost show your workings, I suppose, in a way, that the things you find out that you are sharing, that. We're talking about what we learn about process and about creating the comics, but a lot of the lessons that you divine from the careers is more about, I suppose, career paths and perseverance and sharing. And it's elements, I suppose, that support and develop a career as much as anything that you're putting forward. So it's another aspect that you don't really sort of see explored in lots of places.
Yeah. No, it's great. I think ideally, you could be any doing any creative endeavor. Like you could be a musician, you could be an illustrator, a graphic designer, a film editor, and hopefully you might get something out of the lessons from those little potted biographies. Obviously, I think they're directly applicable to cartoonists, but I think that's just, like you say, it's the bigger kind of picture in terms of, like you say, resilience, perseverance, what the kind of skills and traits that can kind of lead you to thrive in whatever sort of creative endeavor is your chosen field.
Brilliant. And then Slang Pictorial, we've got 3 issues available at the moment, haven't we?
Number 4, I've got I'm 3/4, maybe 5/8. Is that, no, that's less, 7/8 of the 7/8 of the never one for maths. Of that finished penciling, issue 4. Big push, try and get to Kickstarter probably in March, start of April, I think, if I'm being realistic. But definitely, it's my sort of goal this year is to try and get 2 issues out. That's the sort of so I've managed 1 issue a year the last 3 years. So that this year, 2019, you hear it here. I'm
committing.
Keep me honest. I want to get issues 4 and 5 out, and really sort of just try and pick up some momentum, because the Kickstart was great. It was fun. I was really kind of blown away by people sort of jumping on board and just supporting it and sharing, but also just new people finding the books.
The work, yeah. No, it's a great. I mean, I was slow to discover Kickstarter, but once you get there, I mean, it's a whole new marketplace, isn't it? In the sense of what you can discover and what you can introduce to people through a different shop front. I mean, I'm now a regular browser on Kickstarter as much as I am on Comicsology.
Same as you. It was only last year really that I went and found it as a punter, and then as a creator, I'm just kind of like bricking it that at any minute now it's going to like implode, do a tumbler and just crash, and we start looking for somewhere else. But while it's still going, I think it's definitely
it's an important. It's become a very important thing for small press creators.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. If you can give people your, how can people contact you and follow you online?
Yeah, at Nick Prolix, so that's NickProlix on Instagram and Twitter. I'm always there. Post lots of process on Instagram. Moan about my bowels on Twitter. So come for the art, stay for the
moaning.
I've got a Facebook page, but I don't know how to access it. I don't really know what it's only there so that I can talk on the awesome comics chat room, basically. But yeah, Twitter or Instagram, and my website's The Sheep and the Wolves, all one word, thesheepandthewolves.com, and there's links to the Big Cartel and everything else on there as well. I'm going to try, this is another sort of thing for this year, is to re-kickstart my, not kickstart, but start my my own email. So I'm going to try and sort of be. So if you want to get on my mailing list, there's a little link to that as well on there, and you can sort of see what I'm up to and what I've been watching and reading and all sorts.
Great. Recommendations through email.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, thanks, Nick. And thanks for listening. You can find me at This Man This Pete on Instagram and Twitter, or contact me and find links to my comics at thismanthispete.com.
Okay, so there we go. Now, let me just load up this webpage. There we go. Right. Comic Art Festival news. Not much to say just yet. We're
boiling.
We have been told some sneaky little bits, and I want to tell you, but I'm not going to.
We can't say anything.
No, we can't say anything.
Well, I'm dead excited.
All I'm going to say is what I've heard is not much, but I've heard a couple of guest names, and they are stunning.
Yes.
And I mean,
stunning.
Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. But yeah, it's very exciting.
Yes.
I'm so tempted.
No,
but I've already proved this episode.
Yeah, that you can't keep a secret.
So let's move on quickly. So if you're interested in coming into the festival to promote your work, you want to jump in the clock tower.
Oh God!
You want to jump in the clock tower? You can apply.
I'm just snorted now.
So if you'd like to send an email to carol@comicartfestival.com, ask for an application form. They must be made by 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March 2019.
Yes.
Stephen L. Holland reminds us that last year he took over £10,000.
Well, he's supposed to give it back, isn't he, now? You can't just take it.
Now, obviously, he does have a big room. With a lot of books, so we're not expecting someone with a single table to take £10,000. But he's basically saying, there is enough people coming in.
Oh, yeah.
Especially on the Saturday. Especially, that just gets rammed on the Saturday.
It does. And we'll be there, of course.
Of course.
I mean, that will just make the people come in droves, won't it?
No, it's well worth if you want to promote your work. Mm-hmm. It's well worth getting up here because we don't have many conventions either up this way.
No.
So there's not many opportunities for people who live Lancaster, Kendal, North Cumbria to actually see small creators.
Yeah.
So it's great to get anybody.
And also, it's in the Lake District.
Yes, it rains.
Not that bit.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty. And the beer's cheap.
Apart from certain places.
But on the whole, the beer's cheaper than London. So I could say that one.
That's true. Well, yeah, that's true. We watched Carmen Sandiego.
Yes.
On Netflix, your new animation.
Yes, the cat's just moved your...
I've noticed. What did you think about that?
Well, I haven't read the comics, so I don't... Well, she's on mine now. So I don't know.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter.
Do I take it just
feel
on
about as a animation style? Was quite interesting.
I like the animation style, but the story's not really getting me at the minute.
Okay.
But we've only watched 2.
Yeah.
So we'll give it a bit longer.
Okay. I mean, it is more designed for kids than anything.
It feels like it is.
Which is good.
Yes.
But yeah, it's quite interesting. I think the reason I wanted to bring it up, I think it's quite worth giving a go.
Yeah, it's worth having a look at. But I don't know, people weren't happy, were they? That it didn't stay really to... Yeah, you see, you've opened a can of worms now by saying this. So people didn't like it because supposedly it's not staying true to the source material.
Okay.
So it's taken in a different direction.
I only ever knew it as a video game on a Commodore 64 or the Mega Drive, I think.
So it was on there as well? Were you a thief?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you had to find her. I think she was stealing. You had to go around the world finding her.
And you had to find it. Where on earth is Carmen Sandiego?
That's what it was.
Where in the world, even?
I think it was more of an educational style game, but yeah, that was the idea.
It was educational.
Yeah.
Oh, did you have to learn your map?
I think so.
Of the world?
I think so.
She's in Lancaster.
That's the only place I knew. Now, let's talk about something else. Now, this isn't related to comics or anything. However, I want to discuss it because of the writing. And I think it's sex education is what I'm going to talk about on Netflix. And as I'm very slowly trying to do right, just looking at how that show had been put together, the way the characters talk to each other, the way they build their relationships, and the way your feelings towards the characters change over 8 episodes is amazing.
Yes. It's a show that you really, really, really invest in the characters, and you are wishing and hoping for the best for them. All of the characters, from Gillian Anderson's character to Otis and Eric. Oh my God.
Eric. Now, I don't know if...
No, don't give anything away.
I'm not going to give anything away, but I don't know if Eric himself is gay or not, but he plays that character...
Oh, perfectly.
So well.
Yeah. You really feel for him.
He's got the campness, but it's done in such a way that you just want him to be your friend. I think that's what it comes down to.
Actually, you kind of want to be friends with all of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's stunning. And Otis as well, obviously. He's a brilliant actor. We know he's a great little actor.
From Hugo.
Yeah. Which you don't get...
Hugo.
You don't get put in one of those films unless you know what you're doing. And yeah, he was good in that. But this is stunning.
It's a brilliant series.
It is. And brilliant. The actors are brilliant, but it is down to the writing and the way they've put the whole scripts together, the way you care about, like I say, every single, even the characters you hate in the first few episodes.
Oh, that changes. They twist that one round on you, don't they?
I think there's only one character you sort of dislike.
Adam's dad.
Yeah.
The headmaster.
That's the only... Yeah. But even then you see little twinkles when he's dancing in the corridor and stuff. You see there is that...
There's another side. But that's only because he was getting rid of his son, wasn't it?
No, there's another side to him that...
Have I just found a spoiler?
No.
Okay.
There's another side to him as well, and it's intriguing.
Yeah,
I
hope...
clever.
Because obviously a second series has been confirmed now.
Yes.
I'm hoping they... carry on as well as this.
Yeah, that's a challenge, isn't it?
This is the challenge now. We've got Happy 2 coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I'm concerned by Happy 2.
Yeah, because is there only one comic?
There is.
Yeah, so that was never designed to carry on. I mean, we've read the comic.
And it's, as far as I know, it's still linked with Grant Morrison, so the original writer's still there, but it's... Yeah. It's
so you
creating...
never wanted a second one, did you?
No, I felt that was fine.
Whereas I loved Happy so much, I was like, bring it on.
No.
But now learning that there's only one comic, I'm a bit. But it might be fine.
It might be.
I'm hoping so, because that series was amazing as well.
I just don't see how you can go heavier than that.
They wouldn't.
If that makes sense. You can't. There were so many shocks, I should say, possibly, is probably the way to put it, you know, shocking characters, you know, Father Christmas, for goodness sake, is... I just don't know. Yeah, we'll see.
Shocking graphics.
We may well be proven wrong, and I hope we are. I hope we are. But we'll see.
But that's the challenge, isn't it? You've written this amazing piece. How do you carry it on to the next series and keep everyone still engaged in the characters?
I think Kingsman is an example. I've not read the comics, but obviously the first film was
brilliant,
and then they went just a bit too silly at times in the second film. It didn't quite match up to it. But that's the feeling you feel you have to do that bit more in a sequel, which can sometimes let it down. When
really they need to just, I don't know, do you think more people get involved in the second one because it's made so much money, you know, too many cooks and all that?
Yeah. I mean, Sex Education is a different story, I think, completely, because you don't have to go bigger or better.
Yeah.
You just have to continue the story.
I said Stranger Things did it. They did fine.
It wasn't quite as good.
But it was all right. It didn't fail.
No.
But again,
it's interesting.
You bring back characters you know in a situation you know now, so nothing's newer. Nothing's going to be new to your eyeballs type thing. So you've got to then step it all up.
But then you've got the Invincible comic series, which again I've not read and I do want to start reading it, but there's so many of them. That seems to have been in such a big ongoing series that has just consistently performed. So it shows, you know, if writers are left to it, they can just get on with it.
Oh, yeah.
And now that's coming out as an animated series, so
yeah,
I'll be intrigued to see what goes on with that. But yeah, it's a challenge, isn't it? Sequels.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely a challenge. Fingers crossed Into the Spider-Verse is as good and the new Spider-Man film is as good. And anyway, let us know your thoughts on sequels. I want to know. I want to talk more about this.
How do you feel about the sequel?
How? Because another one. I'm completely going off
he's
comics
rambling
again.
now. He's rambling.
Ghostbusters has obviously been announced.
Yes.
Again, what's going to happen with that? That's
but they're going to put kids in, aren't they?
Well, that's rumours. But it's got the original cast as well.
Now, you see, that would work if the original cast paid the parents, or one parent, obviously, and then these were the kids that kind of would then have some of the traits of the parents.
Possibly.
And go off for their own thing. See, that would work. But then you can't just like they did with the one where they just changed everyone to women. That didn't work because they based it on the characters.
It was a different feel.
And it was wrong.
The whole comedy.
Should have just gone...
But that's down obviously to the writing.
Well, it's gone down to whoever holds the money bags and says, I want this, this and this, isn't it?
But as with the writing, it feels very... It's very of a now comedy, which isn't working at the minute. It's certainly not the Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis...
That comedy stands.
That style of writing they did for the original film was amazing.
And it stands the test of time.
It was funny, but it was serious. You didn't feel you were watching a comedy. It was brilliant.
Don't you feel, though, that films like that now have dumbed everything down?
Yeah.
And that's the problem. So the jokes are more puerile. They're not putting the effort in to actually make the audience think and maybe get the joke a little bit later, which I think we need to bring back because people aren't stupid.
However... Now this is.
Go on then.
I'm jumping on a Kevin Smith thing here again.
Go on then.
How do you keep the comedy adult based, and also get Bill Murray involved? What director / writer do you have?
Thingy, the one who did
I can't remember his name.
And all that lot, isn't it? Oh, what's his name? It's gone out of my head. But the guy who
just
did Life
that.
Aquatic and...
I know he's not. I know we've got the director.
Films.
And I know, it's How I Miss His Son. And I'm sure he'll do a good job. But could you imagine him doing one?
That'd be brilliant. I mean, it'd be out there.
But it would fit sort of the humour that would be required, I feel.
Yeah. Because all those films are great.
Anyway, we rambled enough for now. Thank you very much for listening. Next episode, we have got the wonderful Charlie Adlard returning.
We do.
And possibly, if we can get in touch with her, Hannah Berry. Essentially, we want to talk about the laureate.
Yes.
With Charlie leaving and Hannah jumping into the position. So we've definitely got Charlie coming to talk about his tenure, which will be almost 2 years to the day when we started the podcast. and he came on for the first episode.
Who was our first episode?
Yeah.
We'll tell him that, we'll mind.
We will do. So, any questions to Charlie? Let us know quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. We're talking within
a few days of this release.
Within 24 hours. Okay, you got Sunday. You got Sunday, Monday morning.
Anything for Hannah? If we manage to get in touch with her, because I know she's a busy woman at the minute.
She is.
Then let us know that as well, and we'll certainly ask away. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you on the 15th of February.
Day after Valentine's. Oh, that's going to be so lovely. We can spread the love. I'm spreading my love for him everywhere.
I'm not going to look under the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. Find out more about the festival at comicartfestival.com. Find out more about the show and how to contact us at comicartpodcast.uk. Find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Music composed by Pop Noir.
This podcast is part of Britpod Scene, an independent network of uniquely British podcasts that's always growing. Check out BritpodScene.com or Britpod Scene on Twitter to find out more.